Hey y'all, it's me Amanda, and this month we're gonna talk about what I read last month in February. So I had another really active reading month, lots and lots. This is probably gonna be quite long, so let's just get right into it because there's a lot to show you. I have a little bit of stuff to talk about in terms of buying at the end. But let's get into it. Let's start with the physical books. I'll get into the digital. I also started listening to audiobooks again this month, so that helped bump the number. Well, I forget how many I actually read. We'll count on the way, right? Okay. First one to talk about, we'll talk about this one. Frost by Marianna Baer. Now, or Marianna. This came out in 2011. A lot of my bookshelf of TBR, like the old stuff, is about from that era, more than 10 years ago. Okay, Frost. This one is kind of like, it gives like creepy vibes, kind of not really thriller-y, but kind of meant as like a mystery, spooky book, I guess you could say. Basic premise, it's about a girl named Lena. Sorry, I had to look at her name. I forgot already. Girl named Lena, and she is really excited because she's going to be in a dorm that's basically just a house with two of her best friends, and she thought she was going to have a room all to herself. There's another friend, but she's in school abroad, but she has to room with another girl instead because that girl broke her leg, and this is the dorm that has the easiest access for her. And that girl's named Celeste. Celeste is kind of a dramatic person, and she and Lena mostly get along, but don't super get along. After Celeste is living there, lots of weird things happen, and a lot of bad stuff happens to Celeste in particular, and it's meant as like a mystery of like, oh, what's going on? Is it ghosts? What's happening? And there's also like a little romance between Celeste's brother and Lena. Okay. So this book was fine. I thought overall it was really well written. I enjoyed it, and like I liked where it was going. The plot was moving well, things like that. But the actual ending was a letdown. It just wasn't that great. It felt like it was leading to one direction in particular that I think would have made sense. And then it kind of just was like, it's actually this really uninspired, unexciting explanation that I didn't really enjoy. And certain things never got actually explained. They were like, it's this explanation and maybe ghosts too. Ha. I don't know. There was a great explanation that just didn't happen. And you know what? It doesn't have to be what I wanted and what I thought was going to happen. It's fine. But I just found it overall underwhelming. This was basically a solid 3 stars read. The next one I read was Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sepetys. Could have looked up ahead of time. Okay, this one is about another girl named Lena, but spelled differently in a very different situation. Lena lives with her family in Lithuania, and her father is brought to a Russian prison camp, and then the rest of her family is as well. And it's basically about them living in this horrible, horrible prison camp. It's basically like living in a concentration camp. It's terrible. The conditions are awful. Tons of horrible things happen to her and her family, which is her father, who's in another camp, her mother, and her brother. It's basically those 3, as well as the other people that have also been detained, and you know, they all stay together and trying to help each other. It's depressing. It's very, very sad. I did like the ending as a whole. Like, it does have some happiness in the ending. Very bittersweet. I gave it 5 stars. I kind of question my judgment. I usually save 5 stars for like favorites. I don't think this is like a favorite. It is a really good book. I think it's good to realize that, like, horrible things were happening in the Soviet Union as well. I guess part of it is the ending, we don't get a real explanation of how things happen. And that bothers me a little bit. Like, not enough to dislike it, but I do kind of wonder. It's more probably like a 4.5, or even on StoryGraph, you can do 4.75 stars. But that's, anyway, I was nice. I rounded it up. It's a great book. This is young adult, by the way. It's easy to read, like, in terms of the language, but it's a heavy content. So it depends on how you're feeling. If you're ready for something hard-hitting that's going to make you cry a lot, here you go. On a different note, I read Act Your Age, Eve Brown, by Talia Hibbert. Now, this is the third and the last book in the Brown Sisters trilogy. I really enjoyed the other two, and this one I enjoyed as well. I do recommend it. This one, our heroine is Eve Brown, and she has a mishap. She's decided to become a wedding planner, and she has a rather humorous mishap with the whole wedding situation, and her parents are very angry with her, and they tell her, "We're going to cut you off unless you get your act together." She is frustrated, she's sad, she goes wandering, finds this cute, charming town and a B&B, and she's hungry, but it turns out they're not, like, serving any food at the time that she gets there. But it says that they need a new cook, so she decides to go ahead and apply, and she just walks in and, like, she applies, and the owner of the B&B is Jacob. And Jacob is a very straight-laced, serious kind of guy, grumpy, and he is just like, oh my god, get her away from me. She's like way too much chaos for my peace. And romance ensues. It's very cute. This is very steamy, if you like steam. I really liked Eve, and what's interesting about Jacob is he is autistic. He's very openly autistic. He tells people right away, and I thought that was really interesting to have a hero who was neurodivergent, and Eve herself is a very interesting character. She's really cute. And it's interesting because you get to see Eve in the other two books. So you already know one of the things she does is she will randomly use the wrong word for something. And it's pretty funny, like the words that she mixes up. It's really cute. And actually, the book doesn't do that much, which it was nice that they didn't, like, go really hard on that. Like, she does a really good, I think Talia Hibbert does a really good job of, like, doing the right amount of, like, quirkiness and humor in this book. Definitely recommend it, especially if you like the other two. This is a great, lovely adult romance with lots of diversity in the trilogy. I think my favorite, I gave this one 4 stars. I think ultimately my favorite was actually Take a Hint, Danny Brown, the second one. I didn't expect that, but this one is still totally worth reading. All right, next one I've got is the third in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Life, the Universe, and Everything by Douglas Adams. I decided to read this. I was not in the mood for it, and that's kind of a mistake, but at the same time, I don't know when I'm ever going to be in the mood for it, so I just went for it. I was like, it's time to just get this read. I'm trying to finish off series and books that have been lingering on my shelves forever. Basic premise of this one is that there's this alien race that they couldn't see a nighttime sky because they were like in a cloud kind of, and then they do see the nighttime sky, and they've decided they're going to destroy the universe because they don't like it. That's basically it. And so you have this cast of goofy characters trying to prevent this from happening. I didn't really enjoy it, unfortunately. It's a lot of, like, little side tangents of little funny things, and I'm not very funny. I do like humor, but, like, I just was not feeling it. Like, I didn't really feel the little quirky side tangents. I wasn't in the right mood for it. It's not that it's bad, it's just, I like the first book, and I think I like the first book. You know what I mean? I'm not feeling any of the sequels. I've got one more of the books. I've got So Long and Thanks for All the Fish. I'm going to read that and then I'm done. Like, just because we own it. If I didn't own it, I wouldn't bother. It's just not my thing. It's not, I don't think it's bad. Don't get mad at me, okay? Just, I wasn't feeling it. I was harsh. I gave it 2 stars. But it's not because it's bad. It's just, I didn't really feel it. Next one I've got is If the Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy. This is another romance novel. It's a Cinderella retelling. I know Cinderella retellings are really like kind of overdone, but I love Cinderella retellings. I love Cinderella, so it's fine with me. Now, this one is interesting. Our heroine is Cindy, and she is plus sized, and she, due to her connections with her stepmother, ends up being on a kind of like Bachelor-esque reality dating show. Now, what's cute is that she met our Prince Charming. His name's Henry. Oh my god. I've read a lot of books. I can't remember names. Okay. What I liked about this one is that it's not an evil stepmother. It's not evil stepsisters. In fact, she actually really likes them. It's just that she doesn't really feel comfortable and completely with them because, like, her mother died when she was a kid. And then her dad died when she was like around 18-ish, if I can remember correctly, which good luck me. But her relationship with them isn't bad, actually. She likes them, and they're not bad people. Like, they're problematic in certain ways, but they're honestly, as a whole, really nice people. I think it has a nice feel to it. It's really sweet. Now, what's interesting is comparing this book to Eve Brown, Act Your Age Eve Brown, because Eve Brown is also a plus size romance. She's plus size too. This book is a lot different in that the fact that she's plus size is very like prominent in the book. It is a very important aspect of it. It is mentioned a lot, and it matters for like, I don't know for the plot per se, but like how other characters interact with her. It's very important to it. While in Eve Brown, she just is plus size, but no one ever talks about it. It's not something she worries about. She's perfectly confident. She's fairly confident, I'd say Cindy is, but she does have moments of like, she doesn't have a ton of insecurity about it, but like I said, the way other characters treat her. I like both different ways of like treating a plus size heroine. I like the idea of really making it a front and center part of the story. I also like in Eve Brown having it just be, she just is. It doesn't, I think there's different characters and different people. So how much it matters with different characters is different for them, right? Like, it just makes sense to me. But I just thought I'd mention that in case someone has a particular way that you like plus size characters to be presented. This one is a fade to black, just as a heads up, so no spicy, but I still really enjoyed it. The only, like I said, I really enjoyed it overall. It was really sweet. I really liked the build up between Henry and Cindy. The issue I had with this book is there's a plot element near the end that doesn't make sense. And it's meant as like a big conflict, but the conflict doesn't make sense in this case. And I really want to elaborate, but it's a big spoiler, so I can't. But just know that I was very annoyed by that. It would have been a 4-star book. I knocked it down to 3.5 stars because it made me mad that plot element didn't make sense. It was meant as just a conflict, but it didn't make any sense. And that bothered me. One thing I should also mention is that Cindy loves shoes. I think that's kind of important to know. She like loves shoes and design shoes. It's important because like that's one of the Cinderella elements. Next, I read one that has been sitting on my shelf for a long time, Going Too Far by Jennifer Echols. This is a great example of a book that I would have loved to have read when I first bought it, but seeing as I've kind of aged out, this one is, it's basically a young adult romance. And we basically have Meg, who is like a teen delinquent, and we have a young cop named John. It's a delinquent cop romance. And it basically starts off with Meg and her friends. Her friends are more goody two-shoes types. Boyfriend, they get caught drinking beer and hanging out on some railroad tracks. And then one of John, I forget his last name, I should remember. Later. I think it's Later. The officer Later is like, hey, I'm going to make you do some kind of like community service for spring break. Now, Meg, I couldn't stand Meg. She was one of the most painful heroines I've read in a long time. Meg has an extreme claustrophobia fear. And I want to be sympathetic. But, like, her fear is to a point where, like, she won't wear a seatbelt. She rides a motorcycle but won't wear a helmet. And that just makes me mad. Like, just makes me straight up angry. Like, I lose my ability to sympathize with a character when they are just being super unsafe. And, you know, I guess not wearing a helmet on your motorcycle is mostly just going to affect you and kill you. But, like, not wearing a seatbelt is dangerous for other people in the car, okay? So that just made me mad. And, like, we get an explanation. But the explanation sucks, okay? Because it's still entirely her own fault, and it doesn't make sense. I don't feel that there was a good explanation of why she felt the way she felt. And it just made me really despise her. And then she's also, I feel, kind of manipulative, and dramatic. I didn't like her at all. Really heavy dislike. And then, the officer, he's fine, whatever. Like, it's not my thing anymore. I'm honestly not into cops. I'm not exactly a cab, but I'm not into cops in general. So, like, this didn't really hit it for me. He was fine, but, like, Also, one funny thing is she starts off the book thinking that he's, like, 40 years old, and I was like, oh, I'm so not with this romance, because she's, like, 17. And then, like, we find out he's 19. And it was comical. But the book actually kind of makes fun of her for that, so I'll forgive it. It was a 2-star read for me. Don't recommend. Next we have The Love Hypothesis by Ellie Hazelwood. So this is, I'm sure lots of people know about this one, but in case you aren't up in with the romance reads, this one is basically about a girl named Olive, who's going for her PhD, and she has her best friend, we're going to say On. She has a best friend, and her best friend is into the guy that Olive is dating. And Olive's only casually dating this guy. She's really not that into him. She wants her friend to just date him, but she won't. Her friend's like, no, girl code, I can't date him. She's like, no, I'm good. It's fine. And her friend won't date the guy. So eventually, she just decides to kiss a random guy in the hallway in front of her friend, so her friend will think she's dating someone else. And the guy she happens to kiss is Dr. Adam Carlson. They end up fake dating, and it goes on from there. I had seen so many recommendations for this, but I was holding back because I'm sure most people know, but, like, this was basically based off of Reylo fanfiction. Rey and Kylo Ren from Star Wars. And I'm not into that pairing personally. I don't find Adam Driver attractive personally. Like, I'm not saying, like, anything bad about him, okay? Nothing bad about him. He's just not my type, okay? I'm sure I'm not his type, all right? There's nothing bad about him. It's just, it's not my thing, okay? So I kind of was avoiding this, but I'm glad everyone kept recommending it. It got so many recommendations, so I'm glad I checked it out because it's great. It's a grumpy sunshine. It's honestly very, very steamy. There's a lot of things that I really like about it. Like, a lot. It does read like fanfic, I'm not gonna lie. But, like, in a good way. Like, one of the things I really like about this is that Olive, like, in a lot of romance novels, having read more of them, the two characters will oftentimes, like, really... Now, we get this just from Olive's perspective, but the two characters will sit there and just lust after each other, and they think these weird, perverted thoughts all the time, and it's weird to me. Like, I don't know if I've ever thought of somebody like the way that these other characters will think of each other. And that happens in a lot of romance novels. I mean, fine, like, I guess, whatever. We get it, you're lusting after each other, and like, but in this one, Olive doesn't lust after him. You can really feel her falling for him as a person. And it's hard to tell exactly how he feels because he's a more stoic guy. It's a grumpy sunshine, you know? But like, you can see the more subtle, like, things that he's doing that show that he cares about her. And I really, really loved that. I think it's a great dynamic, and it really works, in my opinion. And like, I don't know, Olive might even be demisexual, meaning she's only attracted to people she gets to know, like, really well. But it worked for me. I really enjoyed it. I highly recommend it. I'm going to check out her other books. I know a lot of them kind of are, like, the same is what I've heard, but we'll go for it, you know. I am glad I finally picked it up, despite my not being into Kylo Ren. Again, there's nothing wrong with Adam Driver, okay? Just not my type. All right, now let's go on to what I read digitally and the audiobooks. I know, I read a lot. This is going to be such a long video. I don't know how I'm ever going to edit this. First one, we'll talk about Winter Holiday by author Ransome. I'm not going to keep holding this one up. Now, here's the thing. My husband is really into the Swallows and Amazon series by author Ransome. I had read the first 3 books a long time ago. They're nice kids books about like a family of kids who go sailing and stuff. The thing is, they're very tale oriented to a point where I personally found them a little boring. I don't mean to hurt my husband's feelings, but I was like, you know, it's winter. I'm going to just go ahead and read Winter Holiday and give it a try. He'd already purchased it on the Kindle, so I was like, I'm going to try it. And I really enjoyed it. I was so surprised. I thought this was great. It's really cute. Sorry, that was like super enthusiastic and loud. It was honestly really cute. Basic premise of this one is it's the Swallows and Amazons, the kids from the other books. But we also get 2 new kids, Dick and Dorothea. And a brother and a sister that are staying with Mrs. Dixon and her husband. And, you know, they have winter adventures. And it's really cute. And I really enjoyed it. I don't know. I don't know what else to say about it. Oh, I gave this one 4 stars. I forgot to tell you that I rated The Love Hypothesis as 4.5 stars. This was thoroughly enjoyable. And then I noticed that my husband had all of the books as audiobooks. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm ready to start listening to audiobooks again. So I listened to the next book, Coot Club. And Coot Club was fantastic. Also super enjoyable. That one is Dick and Dorothea. And they're on like a river. And they meet some other kids that live nearby. And there's this central conflict around a coot nest. And one of the local kids unmoors a boat, which is super uncool, but he does it because they're too close to this coot nest. And it's for good reasons. And these people are total jerks about it. That book I rated as 4.5 stars. Really, I thought it was super thoroughly enjoyable. I liked all the kids in it. And it's basically the conflict of them trying to avoid these super rude people they call hullabaloos and trying to avoid them. Just really enjoyed that one. I thought it was great. And then I listened to the next book, Pigeon Post, which was not my jam. It's so funny. I liked these other 2 books so much. In Pigeon Post, they're back at the lake instead. And it's the Swallows, the Amazons, and the D's, Dick and Dorothea. And they're going to go gold prospecting. And Nancy has decided that this is what they're going to do. And I found it super annoying. Like, Nancy makes a lot of, like, she's very pushy, and the kids make a lot of bad decisions. And I generally found, I just wanted to kind of be like, you guys just got to stop. Like, you need to listen to the adults, okay? Like, I just didn't jive with this one. I was generally unimpressed by the behavior of the children, so I gave that one 2.5 stars. Sorry, Eric. That one wasn't my thing. We got 2 more books. Yeah, I read 12 books, apparently. Next book, Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey. This one is about a guy named Travis who's a baseball player. He gets injured rather young, so he has to retire, and he's moping. And meanwhile, we've got Georgie. Georgie is Travis's best friend's little sister, and Georgie has been in love with Travis for like ever. And Georgie decides she's going to try to help him get out of his funk. And eventually it turns into a fake dating situation. Because I've read a lot of fake dating lately. I'm not anti-fake dating, but like I could use a break from fake dating, and yet I'm probably still buying books with fake dating because, like, man, it is popular. This book, I rated it 3.5 stars, and I'll clarify why. Honestly, it's really hot. Like, it's super hot. Like, things happened a little faster than I would have normally liked. And the first scene that's like steamy, but anyway, the first steamy scene was a little like, not something, it was original. It wasn't something I'd ever thought of before. And so, wow. It was hot. Overall, the book is kind of like, I think it was written in like 2019, but it has more of a 10-year ago vibe in terms of like some of how the characters treat each other. It's a little sexist, like not really that bad. I don't know. I'm not describing it super well. Another thing that anyone getting into this book should know is that Georgie is a professional clown. She is a clown and does kids' birthday parties. I think this is important to know because people are very divided about this. Most people I know hate the fact that she's a clown. I personally thought it was great. I thought it was original, interesting that she was a clown. I'm like, well, you certainly don't see that a lot. But apparently a lot of people hate that. So, heads up. Georgie's a clown. Anyway, I thought the book was hot, but I wasn't crazy about Travis. There was nothing about him in particular that, like, wowed me. And it does have a more... I personally wasn't too bothered by some of the more problematic things about it. But it wasn't anything like groundbreaking or amazing either. I thought it was an overall well done romance. And I have to say that Tessa Bailey did a good job, like, making me really enjoy this book, even if it wasn't like the best ever. Okay. We're on our last book. So I decided to read something completely different compared to my usual taste. At least, certainly for, sorry, I'm laughing. Certainly for, like, how I am about Kindle books. I almost exclusively read romance on my Kindle. But I read The Dreamblood Duology by N.K. Jeminsin. Now, some things to know. I'm only going to talk about the first book because I read the first book last month, and I have read the second book since. I'm not going to talk about that yet. I'll talk about it next month. The first book, I believe, is actually called The Killing Moon. And this is a fantasy, an adult fantasy, and I would call it kind of dark. So basic premise is it's in a desert setting. I think it gave slight ancient Egypt vibes, and it's also kind of like the Four Humors, though, in terms of that's how the magic system works. And you've got these characters, they can heal amazing things, but you also have characters that are called gatherers. The people who heal are called sharers, and then you've got the gatherers, and the gatherers gather people's like life essence, but not their souls. It's very specific. The souls are meant to go to like heaven. I don't know, the afterworld. But the kind of like essence, it's called dream blood, can be used for part of the healing and whatnot. So you've got these gatherers and they kill people in their sleep, but it's more meant as like, they try to do it in the sense of like people who are old or sickly, or also they do it for really corrupt criminal types. So something to keep in mind in this society. And our main characters would be Ahiru, who is a gatherer. We've got Nigiri, who's a gatherer apprentice. And we also have another character from another country called Kisua named Sunandi. It centers mostly around them. And we, over time, learn that there's a very dangerous plot happening in their country, and it could lead to a war, which would be terrible. I'm not very good at summing things up, but so we have this conflict between like Sunandi and the two gatherers. So again, I'm really bad at like talking about what things are about, but what I liked about this one, the different places where the characters live, like comparing Kisua to their country, which is like Jaware, I think, something like that, is interesting because the book there's positives and negatives to both places. Like Jaware, where the gatherers and the sharers are, is very orderly and like there's not much crime and whatnot, but it's also more restrictive, that society. While in Kisua, you've got the characters are more free to do what they want. The women are more equal to the men. The women are treated very well in the other country, but like they're very limited in what they can do. While in Kisua they can do whatever they want, but it's also there's way more crime rampant everywhere, and like, you know, it's kind of like, and the way the book presents things is that no one country is better than the other, and you've got the same thing with the characters and their personalities and the way they interact. I thought it was great. Like it's very clearly a well thought out world, and the plot it's very the ending is another bittersweet one. Like it's sad, but like could have been a lot worse. So I really enjoyed it. I would say this one was like a 4-star read for me. I highly recommend both books in the duology, but I'll get into that next month. Okay, I read 12 books, and that took me a very long time to talk about. This is going to be so painful to edit, and who knows if my computer and my slow internet will ever get this on the internet. But if you made it this far, I'm very proud of you. I'm going to talk very quickly about the fact that I've started buying books again, which it all started with I was in a bookstore and I was like, I'll just buy a couple books. It's fine. And then it has snowballed and I've been buying way too many books. So I've already destroyed that resolution. Now, here's my feeling on it. I think it's fine if I buy books, but I have to just be careful. What I'm trying to avoid is two things. I'm trying to avoid buying books and then never reading them, being like, oh my God, no, I can't read my new books. I got to read my old books first. And then my new books become old books and my taste changes. So I'm not that interested in reading them. So I'm trying to make sure that I read my new books in a timely manner while also still reading some of my majorly huge backlist. And also, I obviously don't want to buy so many books that I just can't keep up. Like, the main thing is I don't want books to linger. I want to be able to buy a book and read it in a timely fashion. And so I don't really have any new rules for buying books. I just need to be careful not to become a crazy hoarder. I want the pile to get less, even if it's slow, you know? And then on my Kindle, I don't have as much, I'm not as strict, but I've decided to limit it to, I have 20 romance novels on there, and I'm not going to have more than 20 at a time. Just because, I'm trying to avoid hoarding. I'm trying to avoid books lingering forever. Like, I have like 7 books, I think, that are really, really old that I just need to kind of get read. So I've been kind of going back and forth, and it's working. And, again, as long as books aren't sitting there forever, I'm good. Okay. That was really, really long. If you actually made it this far, I've noticed a lot of book people ask you to put emoji. So because it's a St. Patty's Day month, and I am Irish, if you could leave a clover, 4-leaf or otherwise, if you actually made it through this whole video, you don't have to comment anything else, just the clover, and I'll feel loved, you know? Obviously, you know, like and subscribe, all that jazz. I hope you're all doing well, and I hope somebody actually watched and enjoyed this. I know it was long. I'm sorry. I might have to start, like, doing more than one update a month for books if I keep reading at this pace. Anyway, hope you're all doing well.